Welcome back to another pod of Cross Examined with Mike Troiano. If you can't tell, my voice is a little bit off today. Cold, sinuses, flu. I'm not really sure. I promise you, I'm not trying to do my best RFK Jr. impression today, but we will get through this. I am very happy to announce that I have a good friend of mine, Ryan Knoch, as our guest. Ryan is not only just a high-end or what some would like to call luxury real estate broker in the agency here in Las Vegas, Nevada. He's a father, husband, and proud veteran of the United States Army. Ryan, thank you for coming on today.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for the opportunity.
Anytime, buddy. So I gave a couple highlights, if you will, very brief of your background, but let's start from the beginning. Let's talk to the audience and explain your background growing up from Texas, making it out to Las Vegas, and how you and I are sitting down here today.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Texas. I was born in Texas, but my father was in the oil business. So
Oil Man.
Yeah. Great movie, right? Or series. So we kind of bounced around between Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Texas until my dad retired in the Northern Nevada area in November of 1989.
You say Northern Nevada, we talking specifically Reno?
Reno, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were up there in the Northern Nevada area, and finished high school up there in a small town called Virginia City. Some people have heard of it, some people have not. It's interesting because I was just on a podcast for the basketball season that we had there when I graduated. So
You play ball there?
yeah, I played basketball there. So
You look more of like a offensive lineman.
yeah, right. Yeah. So after graduation there in high school, I went into the U.S. Army and did some time in the Army. And my MOS, I was a 12 Bravo. So we did landmine warfare and heavy demolitions.
For us civilians, what's MOS?
Military Occupational Specialist.
Okay.
So that was my job. So we did landmine warfare. And then there at the end, I went to airborne school. So I had the opportunity to jump out of planes, which was cool, which was really interesting because previous to that, I didn't even want to be on a any amusement rides, much less jumping out of a plane. So I had the opportunity to do that. Went back to Reno, went to college there. Didn't finish college, but then went to the fire academy, and then I moved down to Vegas here, and I've been in Vegas now for 25 years. 25 years. So.
And what spurred your move down south here to Las Vegas? Was it specifically getting in the real estate industry, or did something else happen?
No, I think it was, I liked the Reno area, but I had a feeling that it was just too small. Like I kept seeing the same people, and needed a different experience. So decided to move down here and try something out. Actually moved down here with no job, just wanted to come down, figure out life and do something different. So, and at that time I didn't have children, so I wasn't married. So you're thinking, oh yeah, I can afford this for a couple months and then figure stuff out. So it was interesting.
Just a young boy with a dream, moving to the big city,
There you go. Exactly.
meeting friends.
Yeah. So that's how it all started.
Okay, so you get to Vegas, and how do you transition from no real estate experience at that point to where you're at now?
Well, I had some contacts that were in the real estate industry in the space, and it was interesting because it's a sales position, so we don't have the best background, I think, with people perceiving us, perception of the general public. I think car salesmen, real estate agents, are not high on the list of your Christmas list, I guess.
Right. I guess I could relate as a defense attorney.
Yeah, so it was interesting because my style of sales isn't pushy. I give people options, education, give them choices to make, and then you decide to buy or sell real estate. Where some people kind of push people into those positions, and it might not be the best fit for them. But
is that more of your personality driven, or did you lack like a sales background? So once you got into real estate, it was really your first time being in a position to sell.
No, I think it was my demeanor. My character is just kind of try to help people, and I've carried that onset through 22 years of being a licensed real estate agent, now a broker here in Las Vegas. And you want to make people, it's the hugest investment you're going to make as a person, right? So people are buying the biggest asset they'll probably do it their entire life. So I think it's about options, education, and making people feel right when they're done with the deal.
So what's your day to day like where you're currently at in your position running your own group?
Um, I manage a group of agents, so I have a transaction coordinator that does the workload as far as documentation, paperwork, and appointment setting, and then two agents on my team that help with buyer leads or seller leads, and then kind of managing the whole process from, the initial consultation to all the way at closing and handing keys over to the homeowners or the sellers.
Got it. Now, since this is cross-examined, I want to talk about where law and real estate intersects. And I don't know if you agree or disagree, but from what I could gather, probably the biggest change legally in the real estate industry in probably the last 30 years is the NAR settlement. Can you first tell us what NAR stands for?
Yeah. NAR stands for the National Association of Realtors. So it's a governing body for all real estate agents that use that branding across the United States.
Okay. And how did it change, and not only change, but in my opinion, on the legal side of things, significantly change the real estate landscape from buyers, sellers, agents, brokers, you name it?
Well, there was a lawsuit that took place, and it was about supposedly price fixing. So, and more importantly, commissions. So, previously to that lawsuit, it was seller and agent. The seller's agent, the listing agent, would come up with an exact amount of a commission to be split. So typically it was 6%. I'm not saying that there was always 6%. I've seen higher than 6% charged. And typically it's in our local market, I'll see it range from 5 to 7%.
Okay.
And I've seen agents. So there is no standard. There's no hard writing that says every client has to pay a 6% commission. So that was a deal that had to be explained. There was no price fixing going on. I think every market is different. I've talked to agents from New York to Miami to Texas to, our local market in California, and typically people land at 6%. So with that lawsuit, there was some decoupling of that idea, and now the agreement is between the seller's agent, the listing agent, and the seller, and they agreed to pay the listing agent his commission up front. So in that listing contract, it only states the commission due to the listing agent, not to the cooperating agent who represents the buyer.
Okay. Give us a hypothetical so we can understand like the numbers here.
Sure.
Let's say we buy $1 million home and I'm the buyer. You're representing me as the seller agent. How are you explaining that to me, that change, and what we can anticipate from the buyer side?
That's a good question. Again, you're going to go ahead and read the studies and all the information that the NAR had put out, and now we have to have buyer brokerage agreements signed between buyers and the agents that represent them, and you outline everything that happened in the settlement, all the details, and then answer any questions before you even bring a client out to look at properties. So previous to this, we would get out and say, "Hey, Michael, you want to go look at homes?" Great. Are you qualified for that loan? How are your finances? Things like that. And okay, great. Let's go look at some homes. Now it's like we have to have a consultation. Let's have a conversation. This is what happened with that settlement. And I have to explain to you that now the seller can pay our commission, but it can also come partially from you if the seller doesn't pay.
So who holds the most power in that type of negotiation? How does that work? Where does the leverage come from?
I still think it's pretty even. With the communication between two agents, those are things that have to be figured out. So on the purchase agreement, it actually states the compensation or commission that we're asking for as part of the offer.
What would be an example of that?
So say you're buying that $3 million home, or excuse me, $1 million home.
Yeah, let's make it 3. Who cares at this point, right?
So say you're buying that $3 million home. We write the terms of the offer, which are going to be, of course, the address, the earnest money deposit, and whether you're financing, paying cash, and any balances, and then any contingencies that have to be done, and then the compensation that I want to be paid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are you shooting for like the full 6, or how do you kind of keep that managed, knowing that the other side's probably going to approach you asking for a percentage of that to do their work, right?
Well, the agreement between the listing agent and the seller is already in their contract.
Okay.
So they only have to worry about paying our side as a buyer's representation or the buyer's side. And if there's any downfall, say our buyer brokerage agreement between you and I is signed at 3%,
Okay.
and the seller decides to only pay us 2.5%, then I can ask you to pay the other 0.5%, or I can just agree to take the compensation that's being allowed by the seller.
Got it. So
Yeah.
you try to get as much of the agreement financially upfront understood between you and your client, but
Right.
as things progress and deals and offers start flying around, things can change. You got to be light on your feet, if you will.
Yeah. There's a lot of variables at that point, because say in a $3 million offer, you're writing an offer at 2.5. That's 500,000 less than the seller's anticipating. He's like, okay, well, I still have to pay him 3%. So instead of offering 3%, can we offer him 2.5% or 2%? And then at that point, you go back and write a counter offer with your client. Again, going over all the details and the terms of the offer or the counter offer, and then seeing what they can afford and if they still agree to honor that agreement between us on the buyer brokerage agreement that we spoke about earlier.
Now, change is never easy in any industry. Do you feel like at this point, since the settlement and the changes, that there's been like a settling of the waters, if you will, and people are generally getting used to it? Or is it still kind of uncertainty, wild, wild west mentality with buyers, sellers, their agents, brokers, etc.?
I think it's truly, since we're about 6 months into it, 7 months into it, I think people are having to polish their communication skills. And it's like, listen, before we even get to those crossroads of, just seeing what the seller's gonna pay us or give us for compensation, we have to have the conversation of what I anticipate and what is typically going to happen. So of course I want 3%, right? But if my client, sometimes they just don't agree on that. So we can have a conversation and iron out the details before and say, okay, if you're not willing to pay me 3 and the seller's not willing to pay us 3, then I'll settle for 2.5, right? Because it's not a simple transaction. There's a lot of emotions in it. There's a lot of moving parts, variables, things that are going on where, the transaction could take 30 to 45 days, and then you've got to keep everything together. So it's a lot of communicating. And before it was just like, hey, yeah, we're going to go and buy a house.
Right.
So you've got your pre-approval letter. You've spoke to your lender. You're happy with the payment amount, what your down payment's going to be, all the financing terms. Now it's like, okay, here's another thing we need to talk about. And a lot of agents, they're kind of drowning because they're not having the conversations. But legally, number one, you shouldn't be out showing homes without a buyer representation agreement signed.
When you say shouldn't, like how serious are you with drawing a line in the sand for shouldn't?
I do. I
Okay.
because there's a lot of legal issues that can come on in real estate and real estate law, and it's like the last thing you want to do is be in a lawsuit because your client's unhappy with you, and then incur financial fees for attorneys and time out of business and everything else. And you think about it, and it's like, the worst thing I want is somebody to come back and say, well, not only did we not buy a house with him, but then he tried to sue us, or we had to sue him to break the agreement. So of course you never want to have that happen. So handle everything, even if there's a dispute. Let's say, okay, let's agree to disagree and probably just walk away. So we're not in any kind of turmoil.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, in order to be an effective agent, you have to be good at sales, right? You're a salesperson through and through. But now with these significant changes going on, some of the people that I think use your words are drowning because they might talk a good game, but they don't have the follow through as far as the communication skills.
Right.
What are you doing in your practice with your group to hone in on the fact that even if I'm sure you were good communicators previously and we've done business together, we'll get into that, to make sure that you as well as your team are being more proactive and assuring that the communication is clear as day and the expectations are set from the beginning to avoid those hurt feelings from an emotional purchase like a home, as well as avoid us lawyers getting in the room and start flying with lawsuits, right?
Right. Well, it starts with that consultation. Like I said before, typically we would just have a conversation with people. They were approved with their lender. Let's get out. We'll start a search online. Then we'll meet at the homes and start looking at properties, right? Now it's more in depth, which allows us to better serve the client. If I know that, we have to have that conversation, let's just go ahead and have that hard conversation up front. So we'll talk about the buyer's broker's representation agreement, and then we'll talk about their search, what their goals are, what they're looking for, and what they really need in a home, whether it's, school, vicinity to work, neighborhoods, and things like that. So it kind of, that initial consultation, which could take an hour or less, really outlines the relationship moving forward.
I would agree on that. And I see a lot of similarities between what you're talking about and then what I do as a criminal defense attorney, private criminal defense attorney in the community, which is you have to have the hard conversation early because, again, we're salespeople as well. Attorneys, we want to believe that, we're all hoity-toity and high and mighty and justice in the law. But the reality is we're in business. In order to make business work, you have to get paid and employees have to get paid and bills have to be paid as well. I mean, that's just the reality of, economics 101. But in order to not have those long-term negative consequences of, getting a bar complaint or having to withdraw from a case because you set up the client for unrealistic expectations or having them, put negative word about you out there in the community, right? Because your word, your reputation is everything in sales. I feel and I hear that when you say have that hard conversation early because any business person in sales, and we're both in sales, gets excited, right? You want the phone ring. That was the goal when you first put out your shingle, right? Somebody wants to hire me to do the job that I like and I love, but you can't just have those green money signs flashing in your eyes. You've got to realize, hey, this is one of the biggest financial transactions they're ever going to make. On your side of the fence, on my side of the fence, it's their freedom potentially. And yes, you're going to get paid and you need to get paid, but you also need to set those clear expectations early in those conversations so that they know that you're not bullshitting them, right? That you're not just telling them, yeah, that's listed for $1 million, but I'm great. I'll get it for $450, right? It's probably not realistic in most markets. I mean, I'm sure there's always, there's always exceptions to the rule, if you will, and same thing on the criminal side. Hey, I'm accused of murder with a deadly weapon, and I did it on the casino floor, and there's 500 4K HD cameras. Might be a little difficult to completely walk away from that. You're going to have some justification, but to have those hard conversations early, I think not only sets you up for success with the client, but it also sets up the relationship. So when the inevitable difficult things come through, litigation on my side or the business transaction dealing with the buyer on your side, you're united. You have a team because you forewarn them about these problems. Do you agree with that? Have you experienced that on your side?
Yeah. I think even when you're in that situation and the deal might be shifting a little bit to where things are difficult, and it's happened a handful of times to where clients from out of state have different transactions and East Coast transactions are different where there's attorneys involved. Where here, we have an escrow company that handles the majority of the documentation that needs to be recorded with the county. But, things change or start to shift. Again, you've got the clients, whether it's a seller or a buyer, you've got their best interest in mind. So you're thinking, okay, we've had the conversation. I know how to have a conversation that's effective with you and is not just trying to prove my point. I'm just trying to show you other angles of stuff and then get a better resolution from it.
So you just taught me something I've never heard about before. On the East Coast, real estate transactions are handled a bit different. Lawyers are more heavily involved. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And although we're law-centric, Vegas-centric, the show's worldwide, baby. We got people watching everywhere. So for our East Coast viewers, explain that. And for our West Coast viewers, maybe we want to get some properties in the East Coast or take a move. I'm totally unaware of that.
Yeah. So attorneys are more prevalent in transactions on the East Coast, taking out the actual escrow part of it, and they handle the documentation and closing. And then table funding is another thing where, here you have a 3-day right to review the final closing documents or disclosures. There sometimes they can close them a little bit quicker because everybody's at the same table. So seller and buyer are there ready to close after they've reviewed the documents and close a little bit quicker than we are here. So
can you explain in a little bit more detail table funding, that term?
Table funding is where the lender has the right to close on a property as soon as possible with the wet signatures there. Versus here, we'll send the documents back to escrow. They'll review them, make sure they're set, and then they'll send a set of those closing documents back to the lender, the financial institution. They'll review them, and then they'll give a clear to close.
Okay, and that's where that 3-day rule comes in.
Well, actually, that's a national rule. So,
okay,
yeah, that's a CFPB, Consumers Fraud Protection law, to where previous to that taking effect, people would find out how much their payment was, their interest rates, and then sign right away and be able to close. Now the government says, hey, we need to protect the buyer and allow them to have 3 calendar days to review those documents and make sure that if there's any questions, that they have them answered.
So you and I can be engaged as you're my agent, go through, find a home, we agree on it. I'm the buyer in this scenario. We get all the way to the point of closing. And anybody who's been through real estate transaction, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work and education on both sides. We can get through that process, sign the huge stack of documents at the escrow closing, and I still have 3 days subsequent to walking out. Yay, we closed. Congratulations. To call you up and be like, yeah, Ryan, deal's off.
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, then explain that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So what happens is your lender will tell you, or whoever's doing your loan, they'll give you a call. Hey, Michael, we have the closing disclosures ready for you to review. And you're like, okay, great. So it'll have a breakdown of all the costs, prorations, taxes, HOAs, any fees that are in there, commission splits if they're being paid by the buyer on their side. So that rough estimate is pretty much what they're going to be paying at closing. So once I say, Michael, this is ready for your review, let me know if you have any questions. You have 3 days to review it.
Got it.
So at that point, you're like, okay, so I need to talk to my wife. I want her to know that we're on the same page. This is what our monthly payment is. This is who it's due to. This is when it's due. There's a penalty after this date. There's also terms in there that outline more of the financial status of borrowing that money.
That makes a lot more sense. It'd be a little ridiculous to go through that closing. No, you didn't do anything wrong. It was my understanding of that 3-day procedure there. So we brought up the NAR settlement. How would you describe currently specifically Las Vegas, and if you want to expand to all of Nevada or West Coast real estate transactions? I mean, there's been a lot going on. Sometimes people say, like you said earlier, people are not fans of your profession because it's easy money. Doesn't seem like it's really easy money right now. I'm not currently in the market to buy, but I have a pulse. I get the news. What's going on in the market for buyers, sellers, agents? How would you describe it?
Well, I think there's a lot of key points, but the biggest key point I think is that the amount of real estate agents that have let their license lapse. So during COVID, we were an essential industry, so we saw a lot of people in the hospitality business get into real estate. And that was
bottle girls. I think I've seen one of those. I think I've seen one or two of those memes.
Yeah. So there's a lot of memes out there about it.
There's bottle boys too, right?
Yeah. Pool guys, I guess.
Pool guys, bottle girls.
Yeah.
All
so
right.
these guys or these people were leaving their industries because they didn't have work. So then they're like, okay, so what can I do? And it worked for some of them, but for the majority of them, it didn't work. So now they went from being a luxury real estate agent to, back to hosting tables or, serving drinks or whatever they were doing previously. So we've seen a big number, not just locally in Las Vegas, but across the United States of people getting out of the industry because it's not easy money.
So you're telling me there's a difference between selling a Arabian Prince, a $50,000 bottle of champagne in a bikini compared to trying to go through a $3 million house transaction? A little bit more difficult?
Yeah. I think they're a little bit more open to the bright smile of some of those servers and, the flashy grins. But it's a big difference. But, to their key point, they're able to have relationships, and maybe they've had customers or clients that were in those areas that are looking for real estate in the industry. But I think the majority of them that were trying it, burned through that circle, and then they have to find out that they have to market, they have to spend money, they have to spend time on the phone. There's a lot of things that go on besides just meeting people at a nightclub and selling them.
Yeah,
real estate.
and don't get me wrong. I've worked in the service industry. I have clients,
Yeah.
friends. I love them. It could be a fun time, and if you know how to save your money, it could be lucrative. But there are people, and I've heard it firsthand, that were in that industry making that quote unquote fast money, and they're good at sales. They're great with people. You have to be in that industry, and that it's a meme for a reason, right? There's always a little bit of truth in that kind of stuff, and they think I could just transition and be like, hey, let me walk you through the biggest transaction. And I know some personally that have made that transition and done so well. So do you. But also at the same time, you got to grind and you got to put in those hours, and it's not a 4, 5, 6, 8 hour day. It's 24/7, especially if you're starting from the ground up.
Well, I had somebody ask me, it's like, so how long do you think it takes for a new agent to be able to sustain being a new licensee? And you figure probably your first 3 to 5 years, you're going to burn through or at least work with your sphere of influence and people who know people that are looking for a real estate agent, But now I think we were at the height of the number of licensees in Las Vegas alone, Clark County. I think we were close to 19,000 realtors, and that number's decreased. I don't want to say the number, but it's gone down drastically. So
interesting. And I may be off, so feel free to fact check me, but I was watching a clip the other day, and they were talking about recruiting in law, recruiting for more attorneys and hiring, and they said that, and this might have been a little bit dated in a couple of years, but it was ballpark around 7,000. So that's interesting. If that number is even remotely close, that there's almost triple the amount of realtors in the state of Nevada, or did you say Las Vegas?
Clark County.
Clark
Las
County.
Vegas.
So
yeah.
the whole state of Nevada
Right.
was ballpark about 7,000 licensed barred attorneys compared to close to 19, 20,000 realtors here just in Clark County.
Yeah.
So talk about the numbers.
Yeah. Well, you could have, stay-at-home moms that do it, maybe military people that are in the military, people that are pilots or have full-time jobs, but see this as a second source. Because there's a lot of people that have time off, that have variable time to pick up real estate and think that they could do it. And then I talk to them a year later and they're like, hey man, I don't have time for this. Or, boy, I thought this was going to be a lot easier, but when in real estate, when people want to see homes, and typically it's on the weekends, you're not going to be like, oh, I can't make it because, I have this family function going on. You're like, okay, let me call my wife. I'm thinking, let me call my wife. Let me change my schedule. This person needs my time. I've got to make time for them because they're usually working during the week, right? So open houses, showing properties, previewing properties, things like that. And say we have high net wealth individuals that are looking for properties here in Vegas. You spend a lot of time looking online for something that could possibly fit them. I've had NBA players, NFL players that are like, hey, I want this house. I'm going to be in Vegas for 6 months. And I'm like, okay, our market is a lot different from most metro cities like LA, where they have these, 8,000 square foot mansions you can rent for
just
every
chilling.
month. Yeah.
Okay.
That are easy. Right. So I've got a network of agents that deal with athletes and entertainers and high net wealth individuals that they're like, okay, we need a house. And I'm like, okay, great. So I've got to go through my Rolodex. I've got to go through my phone. I've got to find that house. I've got to find an agent that might know or have a contact with that house and do it. So it's happened for me in the last 2 summers. I've got NBA players like, hey, I need this house. You helped me last time. And I'm like, okay, it's not going to be easy, but I have to find it, right? And
You got to get it done.
Yeah. You end up finding somebody that can pay $60,000 a month for rent.
Well, for $60,000, Ryan, I have a guest room in my home. Anytime that you want to hit me up, NBA player, NHL player, we'll make it work, okay?
Yeah.
All right.
Play with the kids on the
Yeah,
weekends.
they might have to deal with some
babysit.
kids screaming once in a while, but we're all good.
Hey, this is Mike Troiano with Cross Examine. If you're looking for criminal defense in the state of Nevada, I am your guy. Go to our website, listed down below, TroianoVegasLaw.com.
That's interesting that you brought up, excuse me, that the NBA players, now we don't have an NBA team now, but in the last decade, we've got a professional NHL team, our Vegas Golden Knights. We have an NFL team, which is crazy. For those that don't know, even just several years prior to getting the team, the NFL wouldn't even broadcast like Vegas commercials. That was a whole thing, just highlighting the city. Now we have an NFL team, so 2 of the 4 major sports. The A's are coming here soon, so that's Major League Baseball. We have WNBA has been very successful. They won 2, 3 championships in a row.
Yeah.
And
Shout out to the Aces.
there you go. And then now possibly an NBA team. I mean, this has turned into a legitimate sports franchise city. How has that changed the market? Because not only is it wealth, extreme wealth for a lot of these players, especially on their second contract, but they're young. How has that transformed you and your practice? Because obviously you want to attract those type of clientele, I'd assume.
Yeah. And I think the biggest way to attract those type of clients is to always have their best interests and be secretive on what they're doing.
Like you don't just hit them up for autographs all the time?
No, you don't just bum rush them. Hey, one of my best friends is a 49ers fan. Can you sign this for me or anything like that?
Come to my kid's bar mitzvah.
Okay. That's funny. But I think that people that do have money, whether you're young, an athlete, an entertainer, or you're a successful business person or family or inherited money, you don't want everybody to know what's going on. There are ways people can find out, transactions and ownership of properties. But, I've had a lot of people some of the clients that have been kind of standoffish. They've been introduced to me by somebody else from out of state, and then you get to meet them, and then, you meet them face to face, and you're like, oh, wow. Yeah, I've seen you. I saw you in college. I see you in the NBA. Nice to meet you. Finally, you get to meet the children or girlfriends or, the wife and things like that. So I just kind of take a step back, and I'm not like in awe. And then I'll probably Google you later, find out some stats about you a little bit more. But, whatever they say to me is stayed, inside of our conversation and our relationship. So even if they were like, hey, man, I'm cool if you put this on social media or something, I kind of prefer not to do that, because then I'm seen as somebody who deals with these people. And then people contact me wanting something because they know somebody who's coming to the city. So that was interesting. I was referred an NFL player. And the next thing you know, I've got people on Instagram messaging me, hey, I know this person. I would like to introduce you guys. And I'm like, oh, I've already met him, or I've ever met her, or things like that. So it's interesting how people come out of the shuffle and want to be part of what's going on here. So,
yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. I just recently had a client of mine who's very well known, we'll put it that way. And she added our law firm after.
Yeah.
And
I sent you a message.
You did.
I was like, hey, man, congratulations.
Which was
That's
cool.
awesome.
Which is great. You love the recognition.
Yeah.
But we started getting messages, some business inquiries, which is nice. That's what, we want on our end. But also, hey, can you connect us with so-and-so? And I'm like, okay, that's, I'm not the entertainment lawyer. I'm not, this person's manager. So you don't want to overstep those kind of bounds when you're talking about those particular kind of relationships. And what I find is interesting when you deal with the athletes in particular, or particularly athletes, we'll just stick with that for now. Sure. Most of them have been extremely talented, the most talented in the room, in every room they've been in that particular sport, probably multiple sports and some athletes, since they were 6 years old. And so they're pampered. They're always told what you want. So how do you deal with that approach of not coming off of just every other single person in a line of ass kissers and really showing them, hey, I'm here to get you a deal and get you what you want, and I'm going to make some money while we do it?
Well, again, with that initial consultation, you've got to learn. They say it's like an onion. There's so many different layers to it. And we've got financial managers, you've got a spouse, a girlfriend, business manager, and then people that hang out with the athletes. So you've got to kind of know what everybody's part is, and just kind of be upfront with them. Like, listen, I'm a real estate agent, but I also know a lot of people in the city that can represent you if you do need a criminal defense attorney.
Thank you.
If you do need, like I have a certain number of people that I can refer business to that's outside of my wheelhouse. Like, so if you're looking for a private gym, if you're looking for a private chef, if you're looking for a mobile detail business to come and wash your vehicles. Like, if you need security, if you need all these different kind of industries that you need here because you live in, say, New York City or Miami or something, but you need it here. Great. Let me help you. Private aviation. That's a big one. Private jets, security, chefs, things like that. So
it's not just here's the keys.
No.
Good luck with your new home.
No.
It sounds like a concierge service almost.
Yeah. It's more than that though, because it's white glove, but it's also a lot of privacy. So with being able to give them options of services that they may need, you might need tickets to F1. You might need tickets to a concert that's coming up, or somebody who does this or specializes. Your wife's having a big birthday party, right? She's having her 30th or 40th birthday party, and you want a private chef to throw it. We got it. We'll take care of you. We've got options for you that are there. Or we've had clients that buy land parcels. They'll buy land around town, and then they want a custom home built. So we've got builders that can help them, architects, designers, from all over the world, not just Vegas. You've got designers and big time builders that are building some beautiful homes and estates. When you're talking mansions, estates,
what's the difference between a home and an estate?
Well, actually, I think typically people decide what the difference is, mansion would be over a certain square footage.
Okay.
So there's different definitions for it, but over like 9,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet, you would consider a mansion. An estate would be something a little bit larger with lots, to where you're seeing like in the Summit, Tournament Hills, and some more exclusive parts, McDonald Highlands, Ascaya, out on the south side of town.
Okay, Ryan. Trying to get through here with my RFKJ voice.
Sure.
RFK voice. You talked a bit about networking, servicing your clients with like different areas, airplanes, concierge, mobile service, etc. And that's actually one of the topics I want to talk to you today, because that's essentially how you and I met.
Right.
Is through networking, through a colleague, a friend of ours, the great Mr. Watkins.
Yes, sir. Great man.
And
Great man.
you're excellent at that, because that networking, reaching out to me, setting up that lunch, not only turned to me as a client, where you represented me selling and buying a home within a 30-day period, which is a pretty stressful time. And you did amazing. It worked out all great.
Thank you.
Turned into a friendship. And then, as you mentioned earlier, referring each other business in cases like that. At that time when we met, I think from a business standpoint, because not only am I a defense attorney, but I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a businessman. I started this firm. Sure. I don't think I was really ready for that. I was more so like, I don't have time for lunch. I'm busy. I got shit to do. I got clients to call, things to meet. Now we sit here today. I can kind of like see the magic in it. Can you kind of like walk me through why you're so effective at networking and building those relationships, and how that's really grown your business, and any advice that you have for any other entrepreneurs in any field? Because I was adverse to it. I just wanted to head down and get to work.
Yeah,
and you're like, let's get to lunch. And I'm like, why? But we did, and it's great.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and you mentioned that how we met through a good friend of ours. And that's typically how I meet a lot of people. You won't see me at a lot of mixers or functions or anything like that, much less in a group of, say, 50 real estate agents. Like, that's not my MO. That's not where I generate business from, or build relationships, actually. So I appreciate the introduction from John, like you had spoken about. And I also learned that I wasn't a salesperson that was going to spend a lot of time on the phones calling people, cold calling people, or trying to get people to sell their home because it had expired with another agent. Because I think that's very frustrating when, say, you're trying to list a home, it doesn't sell, and then all of a sudden it goes up and the sensors are off that people know that your home didn't sell, so they're calling you. So we have a database that tells us, hey, that's an expired listing. And if it's not relisted, us as agents can get your phone number, find your phone number, and then call you. Hey,
Stalker.
Michael, what happened? Your phone? Yeah, exactly. So a lot of people have kind of bypassed that do not call registry and things like that. But relationships are key in this industry, or pretty much any sales industry, to be honest with you, because it's not just a deal like you said earlier where we go through the transaction and then I hand you the keys and it's done. Like I think I've called you on, some anniversaries you've had, not only on the sale of the home, but maybe the birthday of your wife. I've got to see both of your daughters. Like, so I kind of, come full circle with, hey, it's Michael's not home anniversary sale, but it's their wedding anniversary. And I might just send you a text. Hey man, thinking of you. Hope you guys have a good night. Happy anniversary, something like that. Or a gift. It just depends on how close we've come and how many times you actually decide to say yes instead of no to my lunch invites or coffee. A lot of people don't drink coffee. I mean, whatever it is, I've got friends that are sober and don't drink alcohol. So it's like, okay, then let's go out for breakfast. Or the new thing is let's play pickleball. Like, so I've got a lot of friends that play pickleball or go to the shooting range, the gun range. That's another thing I like to do. So spend time out actually learning about people and what they like to do, as a professional male, when you get out there, we're so caught up in the work life. We have to make family time as well. But what do we do for ourselves? So that's what I've always tried to do is like, well, maybe I don't really know Michael, but I would like to know him. He was referred by somebody or introduced to me by somebody who thinks highly of him. So why don't I learn about him? So I kind of pass that off to my children too, especially my son. I've got an 18-year-old son. I said, listen, when you meet people, have a conversation and show some interest in it. You know what I mean? Because sooner or later, that person might be having a rough day and then you see him. Oh, hey man, are you free today? You want to grab some lunch? Let's go. I'll take you to Wendy's or wherever you're from, and you could turn somebody's day around. So hopefully, those little things kind of stick with him as he grows up. So,
how do you train your team in that? Because as I said, like for me, that didn't come natural. Mm-hmm. The work came natural. The day-to-day grind came natural, but the putting yourself out there and because it's difficult. Like, I'm used to feeling like it's like a fake relationship, but we have a real relationship. We have a friendship.
Yeah.
So how do you teach your team who maybe started off on my side of the fence that's like, hey, I don't want to just come off like some fraud and be like, hey, let's go get cocktails when I'm really just trying to sell you. Mm-hmm. What's your approach to that?
Yeah. Well, it starts, with my conversation with that person wanting to join my team. So it's like, okay, so what did you do before you got into real estate? How long have you been in real estate? What is your niche? What are you looking for? And make sure that we're compatible so we can work together. And then usually we vibe together. So that means that we have a lot in common as far as they treat people and what they expect from the industry. So, I think there's different types of people too. So I'm looking at things relationship wise. And then, working that way where some people are very linear. This is a deadline. This is when you have to do this. But I had the conversation. I know the deadline's on the 15th, but by the 10th, I'm already precursoring that deadline instead of being like, you've got to do this by the 15th. And it's like, some people might not like that. So, again, it's just about learning people that initial consultation with our clients, whether they're buyers or sellers. And then I kind of carry that into recruiting. So, you keep asking about that. And the deal is that you want to make sure that they have the same vision as you in business, to where they're not just warm and fuzzy, but I also want to make sure that they're a good person. They understand direction. They're open to criticism or, to building their business a certain way and seeing if it works for them. I've had agents that stay with me for like a year. I've had some agents stay with me for 5 or 6 years. Just depends on what they're looking for.
You're not afraid to trigger your employees?
No. I guess in sales, if you think about it, it's easy to get your feelings hurt. So if you're not open to criticism or to, some kind of, favorable input about how you did something or you could have got a better result from something, you're always learning about something. If you're not willing to learn, then you're going to be flat-footed. So, yeah.
So, as you know, the show is called Cross Examine with Mike Troiano. I'm going to bring you through a couple questions here, nice. Put you on the hot seat.
Rapid fire.
Explain the difference between a real estate agent and a broker.
That's licensing different. So an agent is a salesperson and you continue so you come into the industry as a salesperson, a real estate agent. And then from that point, you increase your credit hours, continuing education, and you can take a test to get your broker's license. So with the broker's license, I'm able to start my own business as far as a franchise or independent real estate company. So that's the difference. A salesperson, again, we'll talk about legal aspect. I think a salesperson, if they were to get in trouble and they come in front of, some kind of legal consequences or hearings, they're a little bit more lenient with them versus a broker salesperson, where it's like, you should have known.
Higher standard.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Exactly.
What do you think about this 50-year mortgage thing, this idea that's floating around?
That's a good question, especially in Vegas, because I see it, and I think the typical person in Vegas might stay in their home between 4 to 6 years. So the 50-year option, I think, is a great idea because it lets affordability into the market. So people that, first-time home buyers, that's a big change in their monthly payment. The down payment is still going to be the same, but your monthly payment is going to decrease, which lets more people into it. Property values have gone up in Vegas steadily for the last 5 years. Even now we've seen the market slow down a little bit, but it's still doing well. So this might let first-time home buyers and some people that, have that low interest rate, still transition that into a higher interest rate over that extra 20 years of mortgage time. Interesting.
Now, you're the expert, but I have a difference of opinion.
Sure.
I think it's a bit foolish to extend out a loan like that amortization schedule.
Sure.
Right? You're really not getting much equity in those early years,
right,
because of the way that the banking, the fee structure works when you get into that mortgage,
Sure.
and it's only extending it further. And to me, it's similar to people that are like, hey, I got this brand new car. And it's like, well, great. What's your payment? And they go from 3-year loan, 5-year loan, 7-year loan, 8-year loan. You're just paying more money to the bank. And I'm sure there's a good and bad to that, but I'm very cautious of that just on
Sure.
my side of the fence as a consumer.
Sure.
Now,
well, I think before we move forward,
Sure.
I think that, there's so many people that are on the fence waiting for interest rates to drop. And as they've trickled down, they're still waiting. So they're waiting because that guy over there has a 30-year mortgage at 2.75. That was brought on because of the pandemic, right? Because of COVID. So are they going to wait for that to happen again? And they've been waiting for 4 or 5 years as property values have continued to go up and the equity has gained. They're behind the curve.
what's that saying? Date the rate, marry the home.
Oh gosh, I've heard that so
Dave-
much
is
in the
that Dave
last 2
Ramsey?
years. Yeah.
Oh man,
I've heard that a lot. But you think about
does
it.
that annoy
it's
you,
just-
that
no,
phrase?
no, not at all, not at all. Because you've always got some kind of cliche thling, whether it's cliche or a meme, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got
We're in a meme world,
yeah,
baby.
yeah. You've got people looking at things different, but people don't stay in their homes for 30 years. And if you're smart and you're financially literate and you ask either your agent, your parents, a financial advisor, your loan officer, say, hey, listen, this 50-year deal, how can I pay it off in 25? And they could say an option is to make an extra payment every 6 months and apply that towards the principal of the loan. Not the interest, but you're paying down the principal. There's ways people pay off 30-year mortgages now and a lot quicker than 30 years. It just depends. You've got to have a plan for everything. Real estate's about planning.
Very true. I just think as a society, we build laws for the people that are the least responsible, the least educated, the least gives a shit,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. But yeah,
Sure.
You're right. I mean, I guess I could say that'd be the good counter argument for people that are responsible, who do care, who are going to make the right moves, but just don't have the liquidity at the time and can need that balance. Now, let's get into something a little bit more lighthearted, or maybe not so lighthearted, depending on where this goes.
Uh-oh.
Tell me about a time that you've been extremely uncomfortable during a showing or an open house. It's had to happen.
Oh gosh, that's a good one. I had a home showing, a single showing in the Ridges, and the agent.
And that's not the hood. The Ridges are nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm liking where this
in a
is going.
nice area of town, right?
Okay.
A beautiful part of Summerlin, and we show up to show a single property with this client, and we're in different vehicles, so they're following me through the gate. We show
Male
up
or
to the vehicle. A male client.
Male client.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. With a female showing agent.
Okay.
So we're like, 2:00. We're ready for the appointment. We're ready to go. She's not answering the door. I'm figuring, okay, I see her, somebody's car is parked on the side of the house, things like that. And finally, after like 10 minutes of being outside, the agent pops up at the master balcony and is taking selfies when I'm showing, scheduled to show a home for $4 million. And I'm like, oh gosh, like, how do you explain this to your client? And he's standing right next to me. Excuse me, can we, you mind opening the door so we can come in and take a look at the property? So it was interesting because, of course she was attractive agent. And my client's like, okay, why am I outside waiting for this to happen?
Clothes were on though, right? Okay. I just want to make sure.
Yeah. So it was interesting, it kind of put you in an easy spot, but it wasn't due to my fault. It was, the agent wasn't paying attention to the door and the appointment time. And she was probably maybe to do some social media, capture some social media images and things like that. So, and it happens. I mean, I'm not faulting her, but when somebody's supposed to be in a home at a certain time, you think that everything's ready to go.
My very first home I purchased out of law school before we met, it was during the '08 time with all those short sales. Mm-hmm. And I never thought you could be like have an emotion from walking in a home that you had no ties to, but seeing how people would tear those homes apart.
Oh yeah.
We're just crazy. And I'll never forget my agent at the time opening up the door and the smell that came out hit us like a ton of bricks. And it had to be a dead body. I don't know what it was. Like she slammed it. She looked at me. She's like, "Get in the car." I'm like, so that was my worst experience.
Oh wow!
And then Zillow came out, and I'm like, I'll just look at the picture until Ryan says we can come take a look.
Yeah. During that time, we had seen a lot of people that were upset about losing their homes for whatever reasons, where they were unhappy with the banking institutions. Whoever signed the notes for them. It was kind of interesting because people were spray painting inside the homes. They were making property damage, doing things for drains, dropping chemicals in drains and stuff like that. So that was a rough time. That whole short sales, that period could take, a transaction could take anywhere from 60 to 180 days if it closed. So you had a buyer that was patiently waiting for a bank to accept, a shortfall on the property.
Right.
To let them in. So it was an interesting time for sure. Those were lean times, short sales. There was a lot of them out there, but there was, few people that were actually successful in negotiating short sales for sellers.
But timing can be anything. Timing can be everything, right? I mean, I was very fortunate. It was just timing. It wasn't I was smarter or better, not at all by anybody. I graduated law school in '08, saved up for a year, and '09, still pretty bottom market. It was time to buy. And I got fortunate to get in at a good time. And now you have what a lot of people are talking on affordability. So that's my next question to you is, what are your thoughts as an agent, as a human being, of these private equity companies that are buying up single family homes throughout the United States? And in my opinion, and you correct me if I'm wrong, are artificially inflating the prices of homes, making it unaffordable for the people to find the American dream, the couple that wants to have a kid or two, go to work and pay a mortgage and have a home that we would all consider reasonable within their pay range.
Yeah. I think that was just something that was on the docket at the state level, right? Where they were trying to refuse these private equity firms or like BlackRock of buying all these properties across the United States. I think it's, is it capitalism? Is it greed? Is it, the availability? But at a local level, it does price people out. And at that point, I've had clients that have been in Vegas. They may have grown up here and they're like, $1 million home used to be, a lot back in the day. And then, for example, you look in the Summerlin area, typically, new construction home in the Summerlin area is starting at like $800,000. And then you've got HOA fees, you've got these special
That's before
improvement.
they put the faucets in.
Yeah, right. So I mean, you could walk into a new home community and deal with upgrades and things like that, or you can buy an older home and have to put work into it and things. But the affordability thing is kind of something that it's kind of a sad outlook on people getting priced out. Yeah, because people can't afford to get into them. Whether you're working, two jobs or you're a married couple and dual income and things like that, it's pretty difficult for people to do it unless they figure out, how to be gifted money from family members, things like that could happen.
Yeah.
Money
floating around. I don't know about shit. Yeah.
I mean, there's always ways to have those conversations, and there's grants from the state, for first-time home buyers. So, if you find a good real estate agent, they're knowledgeable on the financial side, but they also can, connect you with a great lender. You know what I mean? And open doors for you. You know what I mean? There's grants out there that are available. There's money that's available for first-time home buyers. The state gives money out. There's a lot of different options that are available for people to be able to do it. And like you said, I mean, it took you a year to save money up. How long did you have that conversation in your head, maybe even before you graduated from law school? Okay, This is my plan. Do you have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan? You're thinking about it, but you put that plan in play and say 3 years from now, wow, I did a lot of work. I brought my credit score up. I've got some savings. I can afford a down payment. There's even options with new home builders out there where they're offering, a 3.75 interest rate on a new construction home on a 30-year mortgage. And then you can do a buy down rate. There's all kinds of options. So, be creative about it. There's, you can get the door slammed in your face, but if you're willing to satisfy yourself with that, or do you want to push through that door and figure out how to make things happen?
So don't show up to Black Rock with picket signs. get a good agent. Excuse me, such as yourself, that could find creative options. And no, I'm pro capitalism all the way. It's America. I run a business, but there was a time not so long ago before I got to this point where I'm at in my life and had that liquidity and was a first-time home buyer with a ton of student loan debt, trying to get a home that I thought was reasonable for me and that eventually I could raise a family. And I agree. I believe in the pick yourself up by your bootstraps. I did that. I started a business. I came from a blue-collar background. I wasn't gifted this magical money that's not around. Yeah. But now that I'm here, I don't forget where it's at. Now there's the other side of it. People don't want to work for it. They don't want to make a plan. They don't want to spend, they want to Uber Eats 50 times a week, but then they want to complain that they can't afford a home. You got to make sacrifices. But I think that is definitely a longer conversation for another day, is how that is effective for us as a society, at least here just in the United States, of these hedge funds coming in and buying these single family homes. Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting conversation that you've elaborated on, but I like your pushback. And the other side of it is find an agent that can help you with that. Very good conversation. Now, 2 more questions for you. We're going to wrap it up because I don't think my voice is going to take too much longer.
I appreciate it.
And I appreciate you bearing with me. You're a cigar guy, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I sound like I put a couple, through a hole right here last night or something.
I thought you went out without me.
Yeah, right.
They close that gap up a little bit.
Haven't had a cigar in a couple of years, but you're a cigar guy. You got one cigar, one time, no more the rest of your life, doctor's orders. Which cigar are you having and what are you pairing it with?
Hoyo de Monterrey would be the cigar.
Okay. Say that one time.
Cuban cigar.
Okay.
Hoyo de Monterrey on that cigar. And, it's interesting. I'm a coffee guy too. We talked about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
I started a coffee brand. So we're importing coffee from South America and Colombia.
Promote it. What's the name?
Yeah. Monserrate #1. On IG, Instagram, social media, stuff like that. I'll give you the information, but just open that up. So as I've gotten older, I've really kind of pulled back on the alcohol and pairing things with, just coffee, sodas and things like that. And I'm saying a soda. I'm not pounding, 4 sodas while I'm having a cigar and, feel like George Burns or anything.
I don't spend as much time as you in a cigar lounge, but I would feel weird if I saw a guy with a dark rim glasses and a big, thick Cuban drinking a Coca-Cola.
Yeah.
I guess they do.
Yeah, synonymous. I think there's a lot of people in that realm that enjoy cigars. And, it's something that you can do for easily 2 to 5 hours. Like you can, blow off a lot of smoke and hang out with friends for a long time. And my wife is texting me, hey, you done with the smoke or your stick? Or actually, I'm on my second one. So
a golf round.
Yeah, exactly. Not as long, but stationary. Watching sports, talking business, networking. That's another good aspect of it. And I've met some interesting people through that circle of cigars and lifestyle. It kind of bleeds into vehicles. If you're into sports cars and weapons and shooting ranges and hanging out and doing that stuff, they kind of go hand in hand. And then you see people that are into watches, timepieces, things. So it's kind of interesting how it loops in together. So
Sounds like a good clientele I should meet. Maybe I'll start smoking cigars.
no, please don't say that to your wife. Ryan gave me a great idea.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'll have to sleep on a separate side of the house.
Oh yeah. It's a whole different
All right,
thing.
Ryan, pleasure having you on, and apologize to everybody listening to the voice, but we'll be back on the next one.
No,
and
I appreciate
won't be
the
sounding
opportunity,
like
man.
Kermit.
Yeah. Good luck with future podcast, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, buddy.